I'm Madison Cartright. I'm a lecturer in International Political Economy in the School of Social Sciences, and I'm here to talk about my Viva Voce assessment that I used in my class on economic security in Asia. So it's a third year unit, and we have a major research essay as part of that, and I wanted to keep that assessment, and given that we have the tools with generative AI, I'm very keen to make sure that that assessment there's integrity remains in that assessment. So the Viva Voce was a way of doing that. The idea was that we would have a defense of the major essay that would take place after the essay was handed in. We would mark it, we would read it, and then we would sit down one-on-one with the students, and we'd be asking them questions about their essay. We'd be asking them to defend parts of their essay, and we'd be asking them to relate the essay to other parts of the course. I wanted to have something that was one-on-one or face-to-face. Students could still do it online, but they had to have their webcam on. So it was about having a moment on sitting down with the students one-on-one. I didn't want to do it in a group setting. I wanted it to be more conversational, more of like an open dialogue. I really didn't want it to be a presentation. So the students were informed to prepare for it. All they needed to do was basically be familiar with their essay. So they were asked to link their argument back to other parts of the course that we have been discussing. So the rubric I settled on had two main elements. First was their ability to defend their argument, and the second was their ability to situate their argument amongst the broader themes or topics that we discussed in the course. I think it suited this course in particular because it's a third year unit. I think because the students are more advanced, they're a bit more receptive to a new assessment structure. Also, I think that because it was a smaller unit, it was about 35 students, the logistical task of it was much more feasible. And the subject itself deals a lot, it's a very knowledge heavy unit that goes into a great deal of detail about the Asia Pacific and economic and security issues there. So this was a good way to test their knowledge and the depth of their knowledge, which is what the course learning outcomes of the unit are also centered around. So it also suited it for that reason. So the Viva Voce did exactly what I wanted it to do. So talking with the students, it's very clear to me that they wrote these papers. There's no doubt about that coming out of the Viva Voce. So as far as what I set out to achieve, I very much achieved that. But beyond that, having done it now, I think there were other pedagogical benefits to the Vivas. The first would be that students were able to expand a lot more on their essays than they were able to communicate within the essay itself. So it was clear to me that they knew a lot more about this topic than I was able to get from their written work. The other benefit beyond the other sort of pedagogical benefit rather, is that I felt that students took more pride and more time and more effort into the essay itself, knowing that they would have to talk about it later on. I think the quality of the essays was higher than would generally be the case, because I felt like students were investing more time and more effort into it. One of the big challenges was its newness, both for me and for the students. So when I set out to do this, I had an idea of what I wanted it to be, and then I had to settle on very quickly exactly what that was going to look like. And the students also had never done anything like this before. So I think the newness of it was a challenge, but having done it now, I very much have a very good idea of how to run them again. The other challenge was really timing. So the essay that they were speaking to was 3,000 words long. And I made it due in week 9 of the term. And then the Vivas ran during the exam period. So that's really quite a tight turnaround in terms of getting everything marked and then preparing for the Vivas themselves. So I came in prepared with 4 questions for each essay. And then I would ask probing questions and other questions on the fly if I needed to in the Vivas themselves. But that was a fair bit of preparatory work, and that was quite a time crunch at that time of the year, especially if you're teaching other subjects, you've got other marking commitments, it's quite difficult. I'd advise you go for it because I found it really useful. But I think it's a lot of communicating with the students about what the standards are, and I did that from week one. So in the beginning, in the first lecture of the term, the first seminar of the term, I spoke to it directly. I said what it was, what would be expected of them, and I made this very clear from the outset. So I think communicating to students this new assessment they're not familiar with, what it is, would be important. The other thing is that I wanted to be casual sort of dialogue, and that was really important for the success of the Vivas. So I think you should approach it in the same way. You don't want it to be too formalized. As I said, I didn't want it to be a presentation, and you don't want it to evolve into that in terms of what the students kind of prepare for it. So I think having a more casual atmosphere, I ran them in my office or on Teams, and your own demeanor and approach, just to make it put the students at ease a little bit, and to really get the most out of it. You want to have sort of a free-ranging dialogue rather than a quiz, right? So that would probably be my main things, yeah.